Alrighty, welcome to NycosRPG. I am Jonathan Albin, and I am excited to have you with us tonight. We are getting a little bit of a late start. There's been some issues that came up during the episode this morning, and so I had to work out some audio issues and video complaints and fix that. So now we are here, and we are beginning with what I call the real reason why I play games. And really, it comes down to the big idea. So the question, of course, to everyone out there is, what's the big idea? Of course, that phrase has lost popularity considerably over the years, but that used to be a very common phrase to ask. Okay, what's the big idea? And we are going to answer that question by looking at that very phrase as an acronym. As you may know from having any dealings with me, I am a big fan of word plays and puns and the like, and in this case an acronym came to my mind some time ago, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it made me realize how important it is for us gamers, whatever our stripe, whether we're talking role-play games, card games, or even video games or gambling games. We need to get people to be game players because we have a really big idea that is natural to us, whose time has come, and we need to share it. And so this message may not reach everybody's ears that I want to, but if you have any portion of this video that strikes you, make sure you share it with others, because the message here is bigger than my poor audio and video channel here, and it's bigger than any games group that currently exists. And that is that game players bear within our current operation the solution to the problems that the world is facing in ways that will kind of, I believe, blow your mind as we go through these. So if you haven't followed the channel yet, make sure you follow us to keep track of all our new videos. If you are on Twitch and you have not yet become a sponsor of the show through I keep messing up, through subscription, you're missing out, because subscription on Twitch will give you no commercials. You'll be free of commercials here on the system if you go ahead and subscribe. And if you are watching this on YouTube, of course, we love you to like and subscribe and follow and hit all the buttons, because that is how we keep the show a daily channel and get the word out to others. But in particular, this message is bigger than that, and I want everyone to make sure to share this video. I want to see how many people we can reach with this message, because I think it will change the world. And I believe that we can actually reach into the other common cultures of the world and show them what we have to share, and perhaps bring them all over into our camp. So let's get started, shall we? So the acronym for big idea stems from the following points, and the first portion is how I define game players as a collective group. We are, if you will, in this case, the big people in the conversation. We are those that have the essentials that all the others are missing out on, and that we can help assist them by sharing with them the second half, or the idea. So let's go through these. First of all, gamers come to the table right from the get-go with the understanding of the phrase benefit of the doubt. Now, in a lot of cases, the benefit of the doubt has been tossed out of the window, because we see those who differ from us as being intentionally adversarial, intentionally aggressive, and intentionally obtuse. And this position, where we hold the others to a higher standard, perhaps even from ourselves, we are failing ourselves by taking away the opportunity to establish communication. And it's in the communication that we truly reach our goals. So this concept of benefit of the doubt, a gamer brings to the table simply by wanting to play games with other people. Because if I am going to provide a playing space and a set of rules and a opportunity to participate, I am going to have to assume the benefit of the doubt that the person who is sitting down to compete with me is doing so altruistically, following the same rules I am. We are equitable in our approach to the game, and because of that, we are not trying to pull one over on the opponent, because otherwise it's not a game we're playing. Now, our culture has definitely done its dirty work, if you will, by painting games as being petty and infantile and not worth the effort. But the reality is that if we're talking about sincerely playing a game, we are definitely talking about that benefit of the doubt. And when we have the concept of the benefit of the doubt and we share it with others, that means we're not looking to get one over on them either. We sincerely want to engage with them. Now, this leads, therefore, to the I, and that is that game players, game store owners, game buyers, everyone that is in the games community, generally speaking, are inclusive of all others. In other words, whether you are a board game player or miniatures or you've got a role-playing group, you are glad to have new players sit down at the table at any time. You're not, it doesn't matter their color, size, shape, creed, background, faith, culture, nothing. As long as they have the capacity to play the game we're talking about and want to be there and want to engage, we are definitely going to be inclusive of all players. And this inclusion point of the BIG, I think, is really essential to recognize that that includes all barriers that normally would be thrown up. If I'm sitting down to play a game of cribbage and somebody wants to play against me, I don't care anything about where they come from, what their background is, as long as they understand the rules. And if they don't, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they understand the rules and are playing the same game that I am throughout the process, because otherwise it's not fun. The games are only enjoyable when they are equitable for the players involved. This also leads, therefore, to the G. And while there are players that have difficulty with the idea of being gracious, whether in victory or in defeat, this generally is something that is self-regulated, because game players understand that it's a competition that matters. As the famous saying once was stated, it's not whether you win or lose, but how you play the game. Now, I do know that there are sports aficionados who will quote Lombardi, who said instead, it's not how you play the game, but it's whether you lose or whether you win or not, because winning is the only thing. That's the phrase. Winning is not everything. The winning is winning is not. I can't remember how it goes. I don't say it because it's not my phrase, but the winning isn't everything. Winning is the only thing. That's to the persons that talk about winning. That's generally the anchor point that they say. It doesn't matter what you do to get there, you just must win. And that is the antithesis for most game players. Most game players want to know that their victories are legitimate and they earned them by fair competition, and therefore playing by the rules and establishing the mechanisms for the game, being all playing being equal, is a far better way to go. Now, before we get to the idea portion, I do want to go with this concept of winning, and notice that there are two phrases at the bottom of the screen that don't have anything to do with our conversation. Instead, these are a part of what I call the weekly challenge. I will put up words 2 or 3 times during the week that are keys or clues to a question that I will ask on Friday, and the person who responds in the comment section on YouTube to the question that I ask will receive a PDF copy of the NycosRPG master book, which is the we are in the pre-release phase, so it's well before the Kickstarter begins, but we will be providing an all-text pre-release edition to those who win the contest each week. So far we've had one winner from Anaheim, California, and so we look forward to having other participants earn this prize as well. So we will go more into that a little bit later. Alrighty, so back to this idea. Benefit of the doubt has to do with being able to recognize that players are going to play fair, equitably, and we're going to be playing the same game. Inclusion means we don't care who sits in the other chair, and we just want to have the chance to play. And graciousness in victory and defeat means that we learn that there are times when we're going to win and there'll be times when we're going to lose, and we learn to be kind, gracious, and recognizing of the other person's condition in those cases, whether we win or whether we lose. So next part of this is the idea. And the idea is what gamers who have come to the table with the BIG now have the opportunity to share in complete sincerity with every person that sits down at the table. So the big idea in this case is the first thing we share is imagination. Now, whether you are playing a card game that has a single set of rules, or if you are playing a sophisticated role-play game with a bunch of different moving parts, there is a requirement of imagination to be involved in the game. Part of that is understanding and imagining the position of your opponent, considering what options they might be facing, determining the likelihood that they have, certain cards in the case of games, card games, or they have certain positional data in terms of a miniatures game or whatever. But this idea of having imagination and sharing that imagination is a way to improve the enthusiasm and the awareness of our opponents in our games. As a game master with a role-play game, of course, every session is an exercise in imagination. But one of the outcomes from any of these games that we're talking about is that the players need to develop some level of determination. And I think this is perhaps what divides the on your phone quick little things they call games and a real game, is that there's no real determination. There's no mechanism by which your desire or ardor to accomplish within the game becomes an element that is visible, unless you are playing a game with other individuals and playing mind versus mind, or collectively minds together against a target. But this idea of determination has to do with you're not playing just to see what the pieces do. It's not an experiment in the metaphysics of the game environment. It's actually determining to follow the course of the competition and the participation with the other players. From that, we also have to understand that this process, the thing that we're bringing to the world, is engagement with opposition and opponents. And that is a difficult place in our world today, because we are fundamentally being told to hide behind our boundaries, and that there is an us versus them world, that we must define ourselves only within our narrow framework and consider everyone else to be a danger or a threat. And the idea of a game literally is willingness to engage with opponents or allies or situational targets, which effectively act as opponents. So the idea here is that we're sharing with others the ability to hold our own in a conversation. Perhaps it causes us to be more strengthened. Perhaps we're able to see more of where the opposition's thought processes are, or whatever. But all of that leads to finally the A that gamers uniquely have. And I believe this is really, when it comes down to it, what we as game players have to get across to the world. And that is the idea that there is an acceptance of the outcomes of the game, and to be able to narrowly define it in that fashion. So much of what the world has done has put us in a position where there is a continuum, and that the fight is ongoing, and that when we have it, even if we have achieved a victory, it is only Pyrrhic in nature, and we have to be ready for the next one. And this constant need to be in oppositional positioning takes away the one thing that games provide, and that is the ability to acknowledge and recognize the times that we've been successful just as often as we are able to accept and recognize the times that we have failed. And we have to be able to be the bigger person. This goes back to the G in victory, in graciousness. If we don't learn how to be gracious in our victories as much as we learn how to be gracious in our defeats, we are literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Now, if you are a game player and you have a group of players that play with you regularly, think about those players, those persons who are not in your games group, the people that are in your life that are not sitting at the table with you. And I have to ask you the question, why? What is the reason for not participating in games with people? I would submit to you that when you are the bigger person, when you understand the benefit of the doubt, the ability to include all players, and graciousness in success or failure, you set yourself up to be able to play against and with everyone. Now, there are opportunities to improve. There are obviously those situations where we have that improvement come through our losses, but even the acknowledgement of the loss itself is a powerful tool. And so when we have developed this big idea, then we almost have to engage with other people. The engagement with opponents is so critical because we have to be able to communicate in order for our culture to fundamentally survive. The blue versus red, the conservative versus liberal, the hard line versus the soft line, the rules as written versus the rules of cool. All of these variations don't define us, but they also don't deprive us of engagement unless we choose it. And that's really what I'm talking about. So think about it. Have you asked someone to play a game with you? When was the last time you played a board game or a card game with someone else? When was the last time you opened your home to other people and brought them in and shared with them a games experience? All of these points are really essential to our improvement of our world and getting to the place where games are going to be the big ideas that they really should be. So before I go, I've got a couple more things to do. Number one, this is NycosRPG. I'm Jonathan Albin, and the Nykos story is a 12,000-year tale, 50 plus years in the making. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel here and on YouTube, please do so. It really helps out the channel. And if you are watching here on Twitch, subscription means no more commercials. Now, what is Nykos? Well, NycosRPG is a skills-oriented, elegant, and intuitive RPG. By these two terms, I'm making arrogant claims, but the elegance comes from its simplicity and its attention to player desires. It's intuitive because it's a numeric system that's fundamentally driven by the way we think about numbers anyway. The stories are dialogue driven. The play is cinematic in visual response. It is generally played in theater of the mind, so it does expand your creativity, and in that process it provides you with a mechanism that is literally not your clumsy old system. Now, the difference between NycosRPG and any other system you've played is literally fun. There are reasons to play and use this system, even if you're playing with another mechanism. So I've done my bit to say that, and let me just simply say this. Subscribe now, and also join our Patreon at patreon.com/Nykos for the opportunity to play with us in our groups on Saturdays and Sundays. More information on that at a later time, probably in another video. All right. Now, I'm going to get up on my soapbox for this last little bit, and I realize that it might take as long as the actual presentation I already just made, but I need to do these as separate increments because this is a rant. And that is, I really believe that the solution to all of our world's problems comes down to games. And I know that those of you who have carpentry careers, you know that the old saying is that if all you've ever used in your life is a hammer, then every problem's going to look like a nail. And yes, I, as a game master, have spent 50 years in gameplay. So naturally, I'm going to see the application to all the world's problems through games. But I want you to understand that this is not a mechanism with only one tool in the toolbox. When I speak of the solution to the world's problem being games, every situation in the world has an analog that is a game. And we have done this culturally because of the fact that we want to test or engage the potentials within a situation in a test format that allows us to analyze the outcomes, but we want to do it in a way that is enjoyable, replicable, and testable. And that is, by definition, what games are. As a matter of fact, there's an entire section of numbers philosophy nowadays that is called games theory, which has nothing to do with tabletop games, but it has everything to do with this concept of breaking out the variables in a situation to allow us to analyze the invariables. I believe that the concept of playing games really comes down to analyzing what is it in your life you're looking for. What is it you don't have that you need? And finding the game mechanisms that provide that training, that education, that information. And as such, with 50 plus years behind the shield, so to speak, I believe I've got a pretty unique perspective on what those games might be. And so I provide consult services from time to time to manufacturers, retailers, and consumers about how they can change the things in their lives by the very games that they engage with and the ones that they are currently selling. So I think that what I'm really saying when I refer to the real solution to the world's problems is that we need to think critically about what systems we need to test and find ways for the testing to be as natural and emotionally acceptable as possible. So yes, role-play games is a great way to work out your interaction with people, but so would be your more sophisticated and crunchy board games, because you certainly have to be able to communicate in order to express and understand the rules of such mechanisms. So as I get ready to end the show, I just want to make it clear that if you are a game master and you've got any affinity for anything you've heard me say, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out the product at NycosRPG.com. And for more information on the Nykos lore and the backstory of the fantasy world that I run games in, check out NycosRPG.info. I've now hit all the gamuts, pushed all the buttons, checked off all the lists. So I want to thank you again for being here, and we will see you next show. Remember, we are recording on Monday through Friday, generally speaking, from 10 a.m. Pacific time and 11 p.m. Pacific time. Generally, today's shows were both botched a bit on the time schedule, but we are on both of those times 5 days a week, and we hope to see you soon. This is Jonathan Albin, NycosRPG. We'll see you next time.